not everybody realizes that they can invent too. In fact, only 13% of the patents are held by women, but that doesn't mean that they're not the ones who invented it.
Welcome to Midland Money Mindset, your weekly dose of inspiration and insights to ensure you enjoy each step of your journey. Whether you're saving for the future, planning your next big adventure, or simply looking to add more joy to your life, you've come to the right place. Now, let's dive in.
Have you ever felt weighed down, not just by what you're carrying, but life itself? When heartbreak and 2 breast cancer battles could have broken her, Kim Meckwood chose to innovate instead. Out of struggle came Click and Carry, a simple yet game-changing tool that transforms the way we juggle groceries, gear, and the grind of daily life. Her vision? To turn frustration into freedom, proving that resilience, creativity, and courage can lift you to heights you never imagined. From Shark Tank to QVC and shelves across America, Kim's story is one of grit, grace, and growth. On this episode of the Midland Money Mindset, we uncover how carrying life's heaviest moments can lead you to your greatest breakthroughs. I'm Larry Sprung, your host for the Midland Money Mindset and founder and wealth advisor of Midland Financial. Let's dive into the show. Well, I am super excited to have Kim Meckwood, inventor and founder of Click and Carry. Welcome to the show, Kim.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we've been having a number of Shark Tank folks, and we'll talk a lot about that and your journey with Click and Carry. But before we jump into that and spend a lot of time in what you're doing today, our listeners always love to hear the entrepreneurial journey because many times it's different, but similar at the same time. So can you share with our listeners a little bit about yourself, Kim, and your journey up into founding Click and Carry? And then we'll spend a lot of time talking about Click and Carry and what you're doing today.
Sure. So at the time I invented Click and Carry, I lived in Los Angeles in a condo, and I had a breakup with a boyfriend, and I had to bring in my own groceries, which was kind of like competing in an obstacle course because I had to go through multiple doors, up an elevator, sometimes the stairs, just to get to the front door. So I knew there had to be a better way. And at the time I was working for Medtronic and medical device sales, and I had been drawing this idea, came to me in a dream. And finally, one of my friends, she's a neurologist at USC. Her name is Dr. Jennifer Huey. She's amazing, one of my best friends to this day. She said to me, will you shut up and stop talking about it and do something about it? So I did. I went through all the processes to get this product to market. I worked with a designer at the Pasadena Design School. She was getting her master's in product design, and I was able to use a 3D CAD printer for about $200 a pop versus $2,000 a pop out in the normal market. And after 9 iterations, I came upon the winner. I patented it once the patents were complete, which took almost 3 years for both of them, utility patents. I actually made a mold and wanted to see if it was viable. Needed some modifications. We modified the mold, and then the winner, Click and Carry, came to be. And so it was always a side gig until Shark Tank. That's when I decided to go full-time into working for Click and Carry. So I left my job a couple of weeks before, and I've been working for Click and Carry full-time ever since.
Amazing. What was your entrepreneurial background before that? You said you worked for Medtronic. Was there something in your background, in your DNA, that led you down this entrepreneurial journey?
No, I'd say I was always entrepreneurial. I used to collect rocks, paint them, and sell them door to door. Gosh, our neighbor took us to a flea market one time, and I sold 50 records, including broken ones. I think the guy just bought them because he thought I was cute, a cute little 6-year-old kid. But it's just always been in me. And I was in sales, so you have to be creative in sales because you're hit with a lot of no's. In particular with Medtronic, we were the only all-female team in the country, and our job was basically to convince the neurologist to find the proper candidate for deep brain stimulation surgery. So that's sales, but on a technical level. So this was easy and fun because this was my own invention. I thought of it, and it was easy to explain and demonstrate, and I'd be glad to give you a demonstration if you'd like to see that.
Yeah, we could talk about that. I don't know how that'll translate for those listening via audio, but we could have a link out to a demonstration on your site for that
Perfect.
reason. I think that would be a little bit better for the purposes of the show. Listen, I'm one of those one trip bag people. I go to the car, I pull everything out, I, carry it all in. I remember watching the show when you were on, and I remember my wife looking at me with side eyes as we watched the shark, your Shark Tank experience, because she's like, this is perfect for you. Tell us about your Shark Tank experience, because I think that's something unique that not a lot of people get to experience. We've gotten certain perspectives from certain people. We've had Rachel from Bordery on. She's episode 247.
I love that product.
Yeah. We've used it for our family's holiday gifts on a couple occasions. And also just had Adam Callanan on episode 272. So Bottle Keeper, another Shark Tank. And we've had several others. So, and I think everybody has a different experience. So can you share what your experience was like?
Sure. Well, first off, it took me a long time to get there. I actually auditioned in the second season and was working with the producers for a good 3 months. And right up until the very end, when it was time to film, I was nixed. And I was told I didn't even have to apply the following year, that the producer would just call me back. Well, it turns out he left Shark Tank and went into real estate. So I missed that opportunity, and then tried out subsequently every year for like the next 6 or 7 years. And turns out I hold the record for the most attempts ever to get on the show. So I finally make it onto the show, which was definitely both the most exciting and scariest day of my whole life. I was in the tank for about 50 minutes, and I had a blast, but I was pretty much bombarded by Mr. Wonderful, and I think it's because I provoked him in the very beginning. I told him, hey, my mom said you better be nice to me, so he was deliberately a little bit tough on me. But it was, all in all, a phenomenal experience. I loved all the sharks. I have a special love for Mark Cuban. I think he's great, but I was really lucky to make a deal on TV with Mark and Barbara, and everybody was wonderful. They asked great questions. It's funny because they edit it differently than it actually pans out on the show. For example, it looked like Lori went out right away, when it was basically Lori and Barbara kind of fighting for me until the end. And that's when Barbara jumped in. So they do some Hollywood magic and tricks, but for the most part, it was exactly what happened. And we're able to really get a feel for how the sharks ask questions and why they ask these questions. And it was one of the best experiences of my whole life.
Yeah. Sounds like a fantastic experience. Now, let's shift over to Click and Carry for a little bit, right? I think it's a little bit unique, and I was hoping you could share, how did you leverage your network and connections to actually turn the idea that you had into a product?
I would say I leveraged my connections with neurologists and neurosurgeons. In particular, there were 2 neurosurgeons I work with who are both engineers and neurosurgeons. So that really inspired me. And I used to recommend them most because I think they have a different spatial function than the regular neurologist. When you're an engineer, you think in 3D, and I have a math mind too. So that's how my brain thinks, more spatially. So I realized that most inventors are actually surgeons. So I was around these people. They're just people. They put on their pants the same way you and I do. So it made me realize, hey, I could be an inventor too. And I just went for it. And then the luckiest break of all is the fact that Jennifer, my best friend, the doctor at USC, she introduced me to her neighbor upstairs in Pasadena who was attending the Pasadena Design School. So I was able to get help with my 3D CAD print and also utilize the 3D printer there at the school, where I paid about $2,000 total, which would have been $20,000 total in the real world, because it took me 9 iterations to get there.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, I think that is so demonstrative of something I talk about all the time, which is network equals net worth, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be financial. It could be helping you get a job, helping you make connections for a career, et cetera. And it seems like you've done a very good job at utilizing and leveraging and getting help from those that could essentially help you get to the next level. I mean, it seems like it's been like a cornerstone of your success. Is that right?
Thank you. I would say yes. In fact, it's funny that you would say that because at one point I was going around making the rounds trying to find financing, and I met people through different, the Pasadena Angels and different investing groups. And one of the gentlemen that I met was so pivotal in helping me to get the right factory or to find the right factory. I had a good factory to start with, but he introduced me to the factory that he consistently worked with. He is the co-inventor of something called the perfect push-up, which was mostly invented by a Navy SEAL. And he was basically the brains behind it as far as the business aspect. And they made 10 million perfect push-ups for Walmart with very little error. And I made the transition to this new factory, and this new factory is just phenomenal. And I could tell you that because recently I went into retail. I made a pivot into retail, and Tractor Supply wanted all black click and carries. So I ran out of the supply I had in the United States. So I had to cut 2 packs and make them into 1 pack. So my mother actually physically made all of the 1 packs, and I twisted each click and carry open to make sure it worked well. Every one of those extra 3,500 click and carries that she had to hand tie were perfect. Every one. That allowed me to sleep at night. And that's all thanks to my friend Mark, who introduced me to his factory.
Amazing. I've heard you share that, and I found this very interesting myself, that 13%, only 13% of patents are held by women.
Yep.
What was it like to take part in an Amazon Women's Inventor event? And is that experience helping to shape, the future, your future, and that of Click and Carry?
Absolutely. It was another one of the very best days of my life because the thing I'm most proud of are my 2 utility patents. So I was able to meet 2 other female inventors. And at the time, the director, Kathy Vidal, is a woman and an engineer. She has actually, I believe, 2 engineering degrees. She's my idol. I think she's phenomenal. So that was an exciting day to get to meet them and to visit the history section of the United States Patent and Trademark Office. In fact, your viewers need to go and Google Hedy Lamarr, who was a beautiful, famous Hollywood actress who was also a mathematician. And she basically designed the precursor to what we know as Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS today. And in the midst of all that, she actually helped the United States to win the war because of basically her sonar that she helped invent with a musician.
What are the huge benefits that you saw out of taking part in that Amazon Women's event? How has that helped you get to the next level?
I don't know that it helped me get to the next level, but it did help me and inspire me to help mentor others, especially young women, because not everybody realizes that they can invent too. In fact, only 13% of the patents are held by women, but that doesn't mean that they're not the ones who invented it. For example, Post-it notes, that was invented by a woman, but her son took that and invented it and filed the patents. And I believe it's made by 3M. I could have that wrong, but
I believe you're right.
Necessity is the mother of invention. And I think that phrase was coined because the mothers are, in many cases, inventors and creative and figure out ways to help their children. So I think that number 13%, we're underrepresented, but that will change in the future as far as I'm concerned. If I could help in any way, I'm glad to help mentor people. And I actually tell people that there are so many free resources available to them to help them invent. For example, there's the SBA, there's the PTRC, which is the Patent and Trademark Resource Center, which is a library in every state, sometimes multiple in each state, where people, the librarians, are trained to help you to search if a product is on the market, to make sure that you have a viable product, to help you with designs or renderings for filing your patent, or help you to find local attorneys to file that patent. So there's a lot that could be done in your local area through the SBA and the Patent and Trademark Resource Centers and even colleges. For example, there are times where I would ask UCLA, I lived across the street from UCLA and the Anderson School, and I said, hey, do you want to use me as your guinea pig for this curriculum for your MBA students. Maybe they want to do a market search or help me with PR or something like that. There are so many things that one may do to move their business forward and do it inexpensively.
Yeah. So let's talk about what you just said, because I think it's important, and I think it's important that we hone in on it for, those entrepreneurs that are listening. Because I think what you were referring to is that there are governmental agencies that will help small businesses protect their assets, protect their patents. Is this just so our listeners can understand if they're thinking and sitting on a great idea and they're like, hey, I don't know what it takes to patent it. It sounds like it's an arduous process, and it is, but I have no idea where to start. Is this a place for them to go to? Do they help walk them through it? Do they help them do it? Is it free? Is it at a lower cost? How does that all work for, somebody who's an entrepreneur thinking about going down that path?
It's completely free. And the librarians are absolutely brilliant. I actually spoke to them a couple of times through the Patent and Trademark Office. Sometimes they'll ask me to speak. And these librarians, they're trained on every aspect of the patent process, trademarks, copyrights, and there are at least 2 in every state. So it's just a resource that needs to be harnessed. You just ask the advice of the librarian and they could lead you in the right direction. Sometimes it may be necessary to actually find an actual attorney. They can even give you a list of local attorneys and those who work on pro bono basis. But they're a significant help in moving the design forward or the idea forward. It's just that a lot of people don't realize that this amazing resource is out there. So our government does do a lot for us, and people just have to take advantage.
And was that a path that you used, or is just a path that you came across afterwards that you found helpful that, had you known, maybe you would have? Or how did that work for you?
I certainly would have. I had no clue about it. I had a friend who set me up with his friend who was a patent attorney and engineer. There's a theme here. But I definitely spent a lot of money on the patent process because I knew I didn't have the time or energy to do it correctly, but I also didn't know about the Patent and Trademark Resource Center. So it happened to be in my city. I could have utilized that free resource, but fast forward 3 years, it worked out because I ended up with 2 utility patents that are still viable today. And the reason I'm able to protect my IP here in the United States and the reason I moved into retail and moving currently into retail.
Sure. Imagine a relationship where financial conversations don't feel stressful, but actually bring you joy. We've designed a guide to help you have positive, meaningful money conversations with your partner. This isn't just another budgeting tool, it's a roadmap for building trust and connection. So if you're ready to start a joyful money journey with your partner, go to mitland.us/couplesjoy and download your free guide. Transform your financial future together starting today. Obviously, with a product like yours or any product that comes to market, the fear of knockoffs is a big issue. And we've even seen stories about subsequent companies that are on Shark Tank and having knockoffs. And my understanding is early on, it kept you from leaning into Amazon, and selling on that platform early on. What was the learning process there for you?
Well, I found out that it was a big mistake not to go onto Amazon earlier. I did get knocked off and I've been fighting them. And my vice president of marketing and I made a concerted effort to learn all we could about how to shut them down. And that was one of the reasons I am pivoting into retail, because they are not allowed to bring their product into the United States and sell it here because my IP is protected here. So Amazon has been a blessing and a curse, because it's possible that the reason I have been knocked off is because of Amazon, because of all of the exposure I received on Amazon. The hard part is the knockoffs are always subpar, and people sometimes think it's your actual product. And it makes me suffer as far as the quality of my product suffers. Mm-hmm. In reviews and whatnot, because they think it's my actual product. So it's really important for all of you out there to find the real product, click and carry, not a knockoff that says grocery bag carrier or whatever the case may be. Support American businesses. And unfortunately, I couldn't afford to produce it in the United States, and I really still can't because all of the master mold makers are in Asia. But I am getting my molds sent here, and I'm also going to still produce in China because they do a wonderful job. So I'm going to be doing both now, and I want to keep the integrity of my product intact because, like I said earlier in our podcast, for me, sleeping at night is important, and I know that my product, Click and Carry, is really high quality, and it's probably going to last for years and years and years. And I do that intentionally because I want people to be happy with their product and to enjoy it.
Yeah, we had a podcast guest early on. I don't recall the episode number, but it was a guy by the name of Ski. He was a private investigator, and he investigates a lot of times these fraudulent products. And I don't know if it was during the taping of our show or thereafter that he shared with me, like somewhere around the neighborhood of like 80% of products on Amazon are knockoffs. It's like a very high percentage, and you have to be very careful where you're buying it from. Make sure you're going to the store that actually is selling it, not some other organization like you mentioned. One of the things I know that people struggle with, especially early on as entrepreneurs, is adding to their team, right? Because there's an expense. We call it an investment, but it's a leap of faith. How did you, in your situation, how did hiring someone with your opposite skill set really fuel your growth?
Oh, boy. Well, I hired him by accident. His name is Chase Blum. He's amazing. He's my vice president of marketing. And it was an accident. When he was in undergrad at the University of Maryland, he had a panel and interviewed a bunch of Shark Tank entrepreneurs, and I was one of his entrepreneurs. So fast forward a couple of months later, he called me and he said, yeah, I've been deciding what I want to do for the summer for my internship. And I decided I wanted to work for you. And I thought it was really cute, and I wasn't looking for anyone, but I said, okay. And he's been with me ever since. It's about 4 years later. He's since gotten his MS from the University of Maryland, and he is my right-hand man. I am a dreamer and a big picture gal, and he's more into the details. So he's a perfect partner for me. We outsourced a bunch of different jobs. So the two of us are basically responsible for getting into all of these retailers. In fact, I took him to Walmart with me twice in Bentonville, Arkansas. He helped me with my pitch to Kroger a couple of weeks ago. I'm starting a pilot project in Kroger. So he's just the number one right-hand man. He's phenomenal. In fact, he's loaned out to some other Shark Tank companies as a consultant because he really does such a great job. And right now, I'm still the 100% owner. My deal with Mark and Barbara didn't go through because I actually didn't air the year I filmed. I aired the year after because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's the reason why it didn't work out, but I'm still the 100% owner, and we're currently going to look for an investor now because we realize it's time for us to expand and hire some more jobs because we are moving into big retail. And it's interesting because when one domino falls, it seems like they all fall because now it's going to be Walmart, Lowe's, Tractor Supply, Albertsons, Safeway, Kroger. That's going to be like 30,000 stores. So it's time to expand and get some more people, some more bodies besides Chase and me.
Great stuff. Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with Gino Wickman and Traction and EOS. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I know EOS. Yes. I think that's a great program.
Yeah. You guys sound like you're the visionary and he's the integrator. So yes. That might be super helpful to reacclimate yourself with that as you go into this tremendous growth phase. It might help you put together a roadmap for that, expansive growth.
Good plan.
Yeah. Like many entrepreneurs, you work more hours probably and make less money, work more hours, make less money than you did with your W-2 role at Medtronic. For you, why do you do that? Why did you go down that path?
Because I love working in pajamas, number one. That's my favorite. Because when I worked for Medtronic or any of the other pharmaceutical companies, I was always working to make money for someone else. And now I'm working hard to make money for me. And it's my product. I believe in it wholeheartedly. And I did believe in my other products. I think that's very important, especially when you're in sales. You have to love your product and really, truly believe in it. Otherwise, the inauthenticity comes out. But I love what I'm doing. Click and Carry helps people. For example, I'll get reviews where an older gentleman will say, I live in a third floor walk up and I'm able to schlep my groceries over my shoulder and have a free hand to hold onto the banister so I'm not going to fall. Or I live in a big condo in Los Angeles and my parking space is clear across the parking lot. Well, when I use the click and carry, I have free hands for mace or to protect myself in case, God forbid, anything should happen. So you hear stories like this and it just makes you feel proud. I'm able to help a lot of arthritic patients because the comfy gel grip on the bottom doesn't dig into their hands. So it's easier for them to carry groceries as well. So that to me gives me energy and makes up for the loss of money. And hopefully this becomes so successful that during my exit, I'll make up that income times 60.
Right, right. And I think the important thing here is, and I think you did it the right way, and we talk about this often, right? When you have an idea and you have a side hustle, whatever that looks like, it doesn't mean you have to get rid of that full-time job immediately.
No.
If you do it right, there will come a time that you're going to have to make a decision like you did and, either make this thing into a full-fledged company and really go 100% to that, because it's hard to do two things at 100%. But there are ways to do both until you're at that point. And I think you're a prime example of putting yourself in a position to have the income while you're building, and then up until getting to that point where you have to make a decision and hit that proverbial fork in the road.
Absolutely. And I knew it was a conflict of interest at the end. So when it was announced I was going to be on Shark Tank in 3 weeks, I decided that was the time to make the move. And listen, there are times I thought about going back because it really is an easier life when you actually have weekends off or holidays off and you're paid for it. So it's definitely a different life, but I wouldn't trade it for the world because I love what I do and I have more inventions to come.
Great stuff.
And the plan is to make lives a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that. And listen, we end each of our shows asking our guests the same final question, and people hang on for this question because we are the Midland Money Mindset. We're all about bringing joy to our listeners, and we get so many diverse answers here. So I'm going to ask you the same question. What did you do today that brought you joy and put you in the right mindset for success?
That's a great question. So I actually put together a letter, kind of a PR notice. I moved back home to be closer to my family. I still have my place in Los Angeles and I'm going to eventually go back, but I'm home now, back where I grew up, and there are a group of high school friends who put together a scholarship fund. So we're going to have a dine around where a local restaurant is going to donate a percentage of their food proceeds to this fund, or people could just donate. So I put together the letter and basically the script for a social media post, and hopefully we'll make a bunch of money so that we can help a college-bound student from our high school make their journey a little bit easier in college, help them to buy books. Are hoping to have enough money so that maybe 10 or 15 students will get at least $1,500 for books or for groceries or whatever the case may be. So that made me feel good.
Awesome. That's a great thing to be doing, and kind of paying it forward, if you will, and doing it in your hometown with a group of people. How can you do more impact than that? So I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing that with us, and we wish you much success with that fundraiser for the high school that you grew up and went to.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to have all of your information in the show notes, Kim. But if you could share with our listeners for a moment, what would be the easiest place for them to learn more about Click and Carry, learn more about Kim, or connect with you? What's the easiest and the best place for them to do that?
Well, thanks for asking that. Well, number one would be my website, which is Click and Carry, A-N-D, Carry. And then all of my calls are Click and Carry with the ampersand for Facebook. Instagram and TikTok are at Click and Carry, A-N-D. And then on LinkedIn, I'm under Kimberly Meckwood, and I try to answer DMs and messages on LinkedIn or Instagram. So reach out if you have a question. I hope I can help.
Awesome. Well, Kim, we appreciate you taking out the time and sharing your story with our listeners. We wish you all the luck as you move into this new retail initiative. Hopefully, when by time this airs, maybe you're killing it and we'll hear about it in the news media at the same time. I'm sure we will. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It has been a pleasure.
Kim Meckwood's story reminds us that the weight we carry can become the very thing that lifts us higher. From heartbreak to Shark Tank success, she turned life struggles into purpose, one click and carry at a time. Kim, thank you for inspiring us to turn every obstacle into opportunity and for showing us that resilience isn't just strength, it's strategy. Kim Meckwood and Click and Carry can be found across most social media platforms. All the contact information needed to find them can be found in the show notes.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Midland Money Mindset. Remember, it's not just about the money, it's finding joy in the journey and embracing the right mindset. If you love the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Don't forget to follow along for more tips and inspiration. Please visit the social links below to connect with Larry or his guests. Until next time, keep smiling, keep thriving, and remember to think about, what did you do today that brought you joy?
The opinions voiced in the Midland Money Mindset Show with Lawrence Sprung are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy ensures success or protects against loss. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Investment advisory services offered through CWM LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. Guests on the Midland Money Mindset Show are not affiliated with CWM LLC.